This week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry with agriculture broadcasters Orion Samuelson and Max Armstrong, featuring agricultural meteorologist Greg Solier. This week in Agribusiness is brought to you by ADM.
On This Week in Agribusiness, in this harvest of 2016, here's a crop that has struggled a little bit. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this weekend's edition of This Week in Agribusiness. It's great to be back with you. I know you enjoyed being at World Dairy Expo a few days ago, and it wasn't just milk that you talked about there.
No, we talked about hay at the golden anniversary of World Dairy Expo. It was really a wonderful event.
Quite a party, wasn't it?
Yes.
Speaking of that hay crop, it's a big production this year. The output of hay, good alfalfa hay in the United States, above that of a year ago, but it has been a struggle for the producers, and that's resulted in some quality concerns, too. I know a few days ago, Orion, you talked with the director of the National Hay Association.
Amy Freeberg is a director of the National Hay Association, and every year we come to World Dairy Expo and talk about one of the basic ingredients to make milk. I like your poster up here that says, delicious ice cream starts with high-quality hay. Indeed. How high quality is it this year?
Well, across the United States, we've struggled to make the really high quality hay this year. Where I live in South Dakota, we had a really hard time stringing together those 5 days from the time we cut it until it's time to bale it of just perfect haying weather, and that's what we all strive for, of course. But we've made some nice quality hay. We're currently in our 5th cutting, but we're just returning from the 121st National Hay Association meeting. It was held out in Pasco, Washington this year. The Eckenbergs hosted it, and so we got a chance to see the hay being put up out there. They're a little bit drier than we are, a little bit more arid out there, but actually nationally everybody struggled. We either had a little bit too much rain on the hay or we actually had not enough, and it's hard to believe there were people that struggled with that end of it too.
Adequate supplies to take care of the nation's demand?
Definitely adequate supplies. There's a lot of forage out here. We're hearing that from our Wisconsin people here at the show. Maybe not the highest quality forage, but you know, when milk prices are where they're at, they're going to feed what they have available. And so the calls that we're getting at our hay company, they're looking for the really high quality forage because they've got the lesser quality and they have a lot of baggage. You know, they've made the hay because the weather wasn't going to play with them. They would like to make dry hay to put in the ration, but if that's not possible, they just put it up wet and they have to feed what they have. So the calls that we're getting mainly are for the really high quality hay if it's available and if they can pay the price for it. That's kind of, with our milk prices, that's the other question.
Is alfalfa still the platinum hay crop?
I think it is. You know, there's people that look at those fancy forages that are the grasses, and they're talking about putting that in the ration. But you know, a few years ago they were chopping high quality straw into the rations. Now that the hay has come back down, they're looking at the quality hay again. And yeah, I think it's the gold standard for what a dairy cow really needs. That's what puts the milk in the tank.
Let's talk about the export market, because we don't just produce for ourselves.
No, we don't. That whole corridor that we just got done visiting out there on the West Coast, so important that they're able to transport their hay that they make out there. China, the whole Orient over there, that Pacific Rim, a really good market for those people. But there again, you know, they're seeing the downturn in the dairy market and they're having a hard time shipping the hay that they do have that direction and getting the money out of it that they want out of it. A lot of things impacting that, and one of them, of course, was the port shut down a year ago. Right. Really tough on those guys. And so the export people are looking at the United States and saying, you know, are you going to be able to deliver, or can we depend on your delivery? So that port shutdown was really hard on those people. But there again, you know, they struggled with the weather just like the rest of us did. It seems like weather is always the factor when it comes to making hay.
A visit with a hay producer, director of the National Hay Association, Amy Freeberg of South Dakota.
Now our Farm Challenge of the Week, sponsored by Bayer. John Secord of Monroe, Michigan, says clean fields are key to a successful corn crop. And to achieve this, he uses a pre-emergence herbicide for season-long weed control.
The main weeds we're trying to control in our fields is giant ragweed, lamb's quarters, and mare's tail seems to be a problem lately. The reason we like the Corvus is because of the time frame that it gives us to get applied pre-emerge. You can get out there as soon as the ground is dry and start spraying until the corn starts to come through the ground.
John says his pre-emergence herbicide takes weeds out early, prevents new weeds, and then reactivates to take care of late weeds.
I try to stay one step ahead of the weed. We like Corvus because of the burn down, the residual, and the reactivation. At harvest time, if I have weed-free fields, Corvus was a win.
And that's this week's Farm Challenge of the Week, brought to you by Bayer. This portion of This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Case IH. Rethink your productivity with Steiger Quad-Track and Magnum Row-Track tractors from Case IH.
We welcome to our desk this week Naomi Bloom of Stewart Peterson, based in West Bend, Wisconsin. Good to have you join us, Naomi.
Thank you. Great to be here.
First question following a report, and we got the October crop report this week. Any surprises for you?
I think the surprise was that there really weren't any surprises, and we were all expecting some sort of drama or flare, and it didn't come. And in fact, the USDA kept they put the yields for the corn and beans right exactly at what the average guesses heading into the report. So that was surprising that it was as expected. We have the yield for corn almost a bushel less than last month, and the yield for soybeans a bushel more than last month. And ending stocks, of course, bigger for soybeans and just a touch smaller for corn. And it just keeps us in this sideways trading pattern. So I think we were all hoping for something to get the market to move, and we are still stuck. Just quiet markets.
Kind of unusual in the month of September to see soybean size increase, corn slightly decline, but still in very good condition.
Yeah, some of the best condition ratings that it's ever had, and harvest is plugging away right at 10-year averages, and I think the market is reacting to that, again, with the prices trading sideways. We've been in a sideways range on soybeans since the middle of July, so the market can trade sideways, the bigger the breakout is going to be eventually. So with the soybeans, what we're keeping an eye on for the November contract is support at the 940 level. If that ever gets taken out, it's going to be a quick 3 or 4 day drop down to the $9 area, where technically speaking is the next level of support. But the market just continues to hang in there. I don't quite know what it's waiting for and watching and wanting to see, but it's been pretty quiet so far.
How nervous are you about the soybean yield perhaps going even higher from this point, with all of these reports coming in from the cabs about how good those beans are looking?
I think that's actually a very likely scenario, that it could be even higher going down the road here in the future reports. The yields consistently from producers that we talk to throughout the Midwest are the biggest I've ever heard. It's like this crop is on steroids. We've got consistently upper 50s to mid 60s, and then you get into parts of Iowa, Illinois, where it's 70s and 80s. So it's a big crop out there.
There have been some amazing reports, to be sure. We'll talk with you a little bit more. I want to ask you about the export scene, too, as we continue our visit this weekend. Naomi Bloom with us from Stewart Peterson in Wisconsin. She'll be back in a few minutes.
Now, Samuelson Says. Insight and commentary from Orion Samuelson.
We are falling apart out here, and nobody is doing anything about it. Nobody even talks about it. That was the opening line of a rather lengthy email a few days ago from a farmer in the Midwest who was talking about the crumbling infrastructure in rural America. The farm-to-market roads that in many states are beginning to fall apart, and in addition to that, the bridges that are being closed because of safety concerns. In many states where those tax funds are set aside to support improvement of the deteriorating roadway infrastructure is being taken by state legislators for some of their pet projects instead of rejuvenating roads and bridges. And then he went on to say, and I haven't heard you talk lately about the waterway system, the dams and locks on the Illinois and the Mississippi rivers, nearly a century old now, continuing to deteriorate. And he said that waterway system is vitally important to producers in the midsection of the United States to move their products to the Gulf and to the world. And he asked the question, why, since they have widened the Panama Canal to make transportation simpler to Asia, why haven't we done something about the deteriorating locks and dams on the waterway system here in the United States? Good question. And yes, Congress has approved the repairs on the locks and dams, but have not appropriated the money to do it, so nothing is happening. But it has to pretty soon. It's time to stop talking and start working. My thoughts on Samuelson Says.
Greg Sollier's agriculture weather forecast for the western region of the U.S. is brought to you by BASF. Grow smart with BASF and get the most acre after acre, season after season.
You're trying to beat your best yield. BASF is here to help you raise the bar on what's possible. Let's grow smart together. We're BASF.
The weather has posed a challenge at times for some field operations during this growing season, as we were hearing a few minutes ago from the hay folks.
Tough getting the hay in before the rain.
We need to consult with our guy right now. Greg Solier, let's zero in on the Northwest for the week ahead.
And the precip pattern into play through the northwestern part of the country. Dead on are these weather systems of late, west to east, and plenty of wind with them as well. Pacific moisture, and including Northern California, several inch moisture equivalencies there on northward, where the latest trough is moving onshore quickly early to middle parts of the week. Snow levels about 6,000 to 7,000 feet. Good news there. Some windy weather across the Canadian prairie. A little clipper system here through the northern plains, but dry. But here's the bulk of the moisture across the northwestern part of the country. And that trend will continue, by the way, over the next couple of weeks, although we get a little bit of a respite with some subtle ridging here across the Intermountain West. Late portion of the week, cooler to colder, but nothing unusual for the time of year across the Dakotas. Sprinkle and snowflake across the Bitterroots as the shower activity picks up late in the week again across coastal sections. New low pressure on the move, or warm and dry across the Intermountain West. Looks like a pretty quiet weather pattern into the early parts of the week across much of the southwestern states. Plenty of sunshine, opportunities for cotton harvest, warmth as well into the southern plains. Not much going on from about Napa on southward until we get into the late portion of the week. This weather system will marry up with this boundary, another trough moving onshore, and the moisture picks up Northern California northward and spreads across the Intermountain West into the plain states. A more active weather pattern. Wheat fields will appreciate it, and some of those valleys and drought areas of California as well in the coming days.
So it will improve their situation a little bit. Obviously, it's a long-term drought that continues to hold on in California.
And we need that really to continue on through the normally wet pattern for the wintertime season. And speaking of almost summer, as I tried to say, we've had a fair amount of that across parts of the Corn Belt. Matter of fact, some 80-degree warmth, moisture reduction, dried on, opportunities for harvest to quicken again over parts of the eastern complex. But look at the shower pattern in clustered fashion across much of the plain states, western Corn Belt areas, with at least a seasonal push of cooler to colder air lurking across areas north and west of about the Black Hills. Over the end part of the week, that weather system is out, replaced by chillier high pressure, couple of frost and freeze patches as we've seen the past week across the upper Midwest. Nothing unusual. Next windy weather system has some warmth ahead of it here. New shower activity beginning to break out near the Canadian border. That's a check on weather brought to you by Grow Smart from BASF.
You're trying to beat your best yield. BASF is here to help you raise the bar on what's possible. Let's grow smart together. We're BASF.